Welcome back to another episode of the Danny Beal Show. Today we had a awesome guest, my old head coach, Cliff Godwin. Talked a lot about his coaching tenure, his ability to have gone to all these places and end up back at his home as a Pirate. His upbringing, obviously, got some emotional comments from him about his relationship with Christ, obviously his new proposal. So hope you guys enjoy. Great long conversation. This is going to be a two-parter, so hope you guys enjoy, and let's go. Welcome back to another episode of the Danny Beal Show. Today we have, of course, another very special guest, someone that is very close to me, a mentor of mine. We have, obviously, four-time AAC Coach of the Year, former ECU Pirate catcher, future ECU Hall of Famer, two-time academic All-American, all of the accolades you can think of, but the leader and head coach of your East Carolina baseball Pirates, Cliff Godwin. Thanks for coming on, Coach.
I was sitting there listening to you introduce me, and I'm like, I feel very old now that one of my former players is interviewing me. But thanks for having me, Danny.
1 year out of it. It's fast train. Get on it or get under it.
That's right. That's right.
But how have you been? What have you been up to? Obviously, the fall just ended, and you're looking ahead to 2025. But what have you been up to? How have you been?
I've been good. You know, it seems to never be a downtime now with college athletics, and I'm sure we'll talk about that at some point in time. But looking forward to some downtime with family, friends. Get to see Bree,
of course,
over Christmas. So spending my first Christmas away from my mom in 46 years this year. So
how's she reacting to that?
She's taking it pretty good. So I'm going to see her on Sunday. At least she's hiding it from me. And
right.
Going to have lunch with my dad on Monday. But then Christmas Eve, driving up to Maryland to spend Christmas with her parents and her. So
cool. Yeah, that'll be very fun. We talked earlier on the phone this week, obviously, and we were talking about how you're getting to spend Christmas, obviously, with Bree and her family, and then going up to see the bowl game. So that sounds like a pretty good break, especially after the fall and the way it went.
Yeah, for sure. So excited to watch the Pirates play the Wolfpack up in Maryland, and got good tickets. So excited about that.
Never dull. But well, good. I'm glad you're doing well, obviously, and I'm glad we get to have this conversation. It's been a long time coming, so I'm glad we actually get to put it up right before Christmas time, obviously. But let's recap the fall a little bit. Obviously, a lot of turnover after last year's very, very old team. I mean, we had a bunch of seniors, a bunch of fifth years, a bunch of guys that were essentially just on their way out, and you had a bunch of spots to fill. And obviously, you have talked a lot about in the portal how well you've done and how well the kids have been getting acclimated to the program so far. But what have the guys that have been here done to help them get acclimated, obviously, and how well have they fit in right away?
Yeah, I've said this a lot, but I don't think it's by accident, but I prayed a lot about the guys specifically that we're bringing in from the portal and make sure they were good fits. And to be guys coming from all different schools, all different stories, it has been amazing how well they fit in, and it's like they have felt like they're a part of the family. And I know I'm speaking as the head coach, but I've talked to a lot of guys like Riley Johnson and other guys who have been in the program for a long time, and have seen, some portal guys come in, and some didn't work out as well as this group has, for sure. And then the freshman class as well has been a really close-knit class. I would say it probably is like the Jake Hunter, Treya Savage, Jaden Winter class, for sure. And I know I'm missing a lot of but that class as freshmen were really tight. and then they became juniors, which was last year,
Right.
and was obviously a big part of our success.
No doubt. And I think that you've hit the nail on the head, and you've mentioned it a bunch of that class really propelled us the last 2 years just because of everybody that ended up staying. It was very close knit, and they were all good players.
Right.
Like, it all helped us a lot on the field and off the field, obviously becoming as close as we were the last, I guess, 18 months now. But obviously looking ahead to 2025, what are you most excited about? Who are you most looking forward to seeing play? Obviously, you have the returners. They just released all conference and were picked first again, as it should be. But as you say, don't hand out trophies in the fall and in the winter, so it doesn't matter. We got to go out and prove it still. But Riley and Ethan obviously getting picked preseason all conference is pretty cool. But again, it's not one here; it's one in the spring. So, what are you looking forward to? How excited are you to get the season going again?
Well, I was kind of wondering why they picked this preseason number one with only 2 players on the preseason all-conference team. So why did they do that? But as you know, it's a credit to what the guys you've played with. Yeah. I mean, you win the regular season 5 years in a row. I guess it's a pretty good safe bet. I'm not a betting man, and players do not bet.
No,
so
don't.
I don't get fired. But to pick us first, but that's the culture that you guys have created, our staff has created here at East Carolina. And anybody that doesn't believe in culture in this very transactional world, then you can't do what East Carolina baseball's been able to do. And I don't say this as a brag for me because I didn't even know it until this summer, but the third winningest program since 2018. You got Arkansas, Tennessee, and East Carolina. And I know that we haven't played in the College World Series, and I'm comfortable with that with myself. Not that I don't want to go there, but we've done it the right way. It hasn't been announced publicly, but we just got a 3.75 team GPA, the highest in ECU baseball history.
I mean,
we've had over a 3.4 team GPA for 7.5 years. And what we've done on the field. And I always tell our players that nobody does it better than us on and off the field. And it's not just academics off the field. It's in the community and what you guys do in the community and the relationships that you build in the Greenville community and what Carter did with Homers That Help. And now Parker Bird and Janesco are taking that on. That's the stuff that's lasting, man. That dollar ain't lasting.
No.
Somebody can take that dollar away from you anytime.
Yeah, no doubt. And it's funny that you mentioned that because Charlie Baker, the president of the NCAA, was just on the Pat McAfee show, and he was talking about, or at least Pat posed the question of, it's the transfer portal window for football at least is so screwed up just because you're still having the opportunity to play a bowl game and they're transferring, but they're staying with their team, and it's all screwed and jumbled up. But like the priority of like academics and like just being a good human and like getting your degree and graduating, like that's not the priority anymore. It's how much money can I make now, instead of prioritizing the things that I did when I was a freshman or even like when you played. It's not the same anymore, and I don't think it's going in the right direction.
Well, it's definitely not. You look at it, and I was thinking about driving over here because I knew we'd talk about this at some point in time. I basically was on like a book scholarship, and the reason was my high school coach is in the North Carolina Sports Hall of Fame. He had sent good players like Tommy Eason and Jason Head from Snow Hill to East Carolina that were actually good players.
Yeah.
So Coach O took a shot on me, even though I definitely wasn't good enough to come here. And it was all about what, you were going to be able to do for East Carolina University and their baseball program, what you were going to be able to help do, not
team.
what they're giving to you.
The team. Yeah.
And now you look at it and it's like everybody's got their hand out. Well, in what profession, and even in NFL, NBA, MLB, can you demand exactly what you want on a one-sided contract and you have no tie to stay there? I just saw the tweet because somebody sent it to me because I've tried to stay off social media because of all this craziness. The Texas Tech whatever player that put out the demands, and who knows if it's true. Some of the stuff's not true, but you're going to decide in your family if you're healthy enough to play. Like not an athletic trainer. Well, if you're an NFL player, you have to play when you're healthy.
Your job.
You're not setting yourself up for success down the road.
Literally.
If you're trying to be the best in whatever you're doing. If you go into the real world, you think a company's going to go, yeah, I'm going to just give you $100,000 and you can walk out the door tomorrow?
It's so unrealistic.
It is very unrealistic.
Hope you guys are enjoying the episode so far. This episode's also brought to you by the 23 Club. Mike Harrington has been gracious enough to help out all of his sponsors as well to sponsor the program, obviously. It's been a great opportunity to be able to work with him. 23 Club is a big NIL initiative that is part of Team Boneyard, but an opportunity to give specifically to the baseball program. He does a great job with obviously getting the brand out there. Be on the lookout for a bunch of get-togethers and meetings, obviously in the spring as the season kicks off. But a great opportunity to give NIL money straight to the players. Obviously with Team Boneyard, so you can do both. But thank you, Mike Harrington. Thank you, 23 Club, for sponsoring the show, and I appreciate you guys. And you know how big of a Tom Brady fan I am, but he was talking about the other day about how obviously Kirk Cousins just got benched for Penix, and Daniel Jones had the same thing happen to him, and they had him playing scout team safety, and he was like, release me. I want to go somewhere else. And how when he was younger playing, obviously, but specifically at Michigan, when he was the backup, he was like, I don't care what I did. I could be the fifth string backup quarterback. It didn't matter. If they needed me to play scout team wide receiver, I was going to do it because that was going to help the team win. Same thing in the pros when he backed up Bledsoe. It's like, I will go sit up in the stands and eat popcorn. If that's what you think is going to help the team win, I'll do it. And it's so selfish based now, me instead of team. And like we talked about, we'll get into it more later. But it is just.
But I got a question for you. You're going to be lifelong friends, and I just pull out Joey Brenny and Justin Wilcoxon because they were walk-ons in our program. You appreciate those guys
more than some of the guys that were on scholarship.
Yeah.
Those guys are like friends for life.
And I'm getting chill bumps, but those dudes freaking earned everything they got and became really good players at East Carolina.
Crazy.
And if you'd have told me we could have gotten a portal shortstop and paid him $300,000, I'm taking Joey Brenny because that guy freaking stayed in the program and developed. And that means more to me because Joey Brenny was at my house with you and Trey Savage watching,
SEC championship
game. Like, you guys are my boys, man. Like, that means more to me than winning a national championship. And if that's wrong and they want a different coach here, that's fine. But that's what matters to me.
And it's the same thing. We talked about it when Tony Bennett ended up calling his career because just the way the trajectory of the NCAA was going. And you're kind of the same way. It's like, I'm going to do things the right way until it is literally not possible anymore. And then I'm like, this isn't for me anymore. And it goes to show a lot that is your priority. It's not winning games. It's not going to Omaha. And even before NIL, you said that. I remember you saying that when I was a freshman. Was like, I don't care if we go to Omaha. Obviously, it would be great. It's a priority of mine. But I want to create better humans and create relationships that last way beyond baseball. It's the same thing that we're talking about with Joey and J-Dub. It's not very common, which sucks because it is the way it is.
But we do still have guys in that locker room like that.
Because we're doing it the right way.
Yeah.
And we're not going to stop.
Right.
That's the difference. Yeah. But anyway, we can get into more of that later. But obviously, you being a lifer of Eastern North Carolina, you played 3 sports at Greenside? Yeah, all of them, right. Of course, yeah. What was growing up like here, obviously, and you've obviously been, this is your 10th, going on to your 11th year of coaching here, and growing up here, playing here. But what was, I guess, growing up playing sports in Eastern North Carolina like, and then being, a coach's son, what was at least the expectations like of growing up? And like you said earlier, you were taking a chance on it at East Carolina with Coach O, but what was growing up like, and then obviously into college with recruiting and stuff?
Well, first off, you said I'm an Eastern North Carolina lifer. I mean, I did have years there. I was an assistant coach.
Yes,
all over the
and we'll get into that later. Yeah.
But, growing up in Snow Hill, like, I didn't come to Greenville a lot, to be honest with you. Like, Kinston was a little bit closer, sure, which is not a big town by any means, but it's a bigger town than Snow Hill. But just growing up, I mean, it was the normal middle class, kid, other than the fact that, hard work was like what you were going to do. Like, you were going to work
hard.
Whether you liked it or not. I was going to work hard in sports. My dad managed that part of it, and I was going to work hard in school because my mom managed that part of it. And there was
well-oiled machine.
Yeah, well-oiled machine. And then, when I got old enough, I mean, I was going to work on the farm in the summer with my grandparents and, work in the tobacco fields. And I was going to work up until I had to leave to go play American Legion baseball. And really, there was no questions asked. I tell pretty much every recruit that comes through, I'm not going to feel sorry for you. If you don't like to work hard, don't come here, because work ethic was instilled in me. And if I struck out 3 times in an American Legion game, nobody was like, "Hey, were you too tired?
Are you okay?
Hey, Are you okay?" They just said, "Get your tail up tomorrow morning and figure out how you can play better tomorrow night."
Yeah, literally.
And I wouldn't be sitting in this chair talking to you as the head baseball coach if those things were not instilled in me at a very young age. Loved basketball because my dad was a high school basketball coach. Right. From the time I could walk, I was in a gym, and that was my dream. I wanted to be Michael Jordan. I wanted to go to North Carolina and play college basketball, and was good at baseball, in a small town. And I actually was probably better at football from a recruiting side of things than I was, and I almost didn't.
Which is crazy to think about now.
Yeah.
Like looking at you now, it's like, what?
Yeah, and but I almost didn't play my senior year of high school football because I was going to concentrate on basketball. And my dad encouraged me, who's the basketball coach. Like, think about any coach that, oh, you're going to work harder at this sport. Well, yeah, quit football. And he encouraged, he goes, you'll never be able to play high school football again, and you've been pretty good at it. Why would you not do that? And then actually Wiley Jackson's dad, Wayne Jackson, was the assistant coach my junior year, and I called him because he was a mentor of mine, and he said, Cliff, I think you should play. And I literally waited to the last day right before I had to make a decision, and I decided to play. And I was player of the year in the conference. And then we played East Duplin in the first round, and Coach Jackson was an assistant coach at East Duplin. And we beat him, and I had like a career game, of course. And I say of course because he's like the one that kind of pushed me over the edge to play my senior year. And after the game, he's like, man, I wish I'd have told you not to play.
If I'd have known this was going to happen.
Yeah, for sure. And it was such an awesome experience. We lost the first game of the season, my senior year, against West Craven in a rainstorm. And we lost the last game of the season in the second round to Clinton High School, which at the time was very good in football, and they finished state runner-ups. Leonard Henry, who played here at East Carolina, was on that team, and we lost 24-12 and had thrown one interception all year. I threw two in that game, and we lost 24-12. But everybody told me if I just concentrate on baseball, that would be the sport. But I was recruited in basketball and football to go play. I mean, I could have walked on to NC State and played football. I had a recruiting visit there and some other schools, and so you lean on the people that have helped you get to where you are. And so I made a decision to come to East Carolina when I told my mom I'd never come here because it was too close to home. And
I wanted to get away.
I wanted to get away.
Yeah.
I applied to one school, early admission, University of North Carolina, and got accepted.
Stupid
and tell people all the time that I got 2 degrees from East Carolina and I can do whatever the hell I want to. So I didn't need the North Carolina education. I got it from East Carolina. And then came here, and Danny, I had no idea. Like most freshmen, I had no idea what I was walking into.
You can talk to as many people. You can try to get as much expectation in your own head as you want. You never know it until you experience it.
Yeah, and I wish I had just like come over to practice and watched just something to have some sort of idea.
Sure.
And back then, locker room very different than it is now.
I bet.
And older players really didn't talk to the young guys, and I was like a nobody.
Like at all?
I'm going to red shirt. So,
Right.
You had this hierarchy, and there were like 2 older players, 3, Jason Howard and Billy Benson and Brian Fields, that would like speak to me and like hang around me a little
Relatively
bit.
give you the time of day. Yeah.
And for this young, immature, freshman that thinks he probably has everything figured out, and give him guidance and stuff. And I redshirted. I mean, I literally, you'll laugh at this, but when they would travel, I played pickup basketball at the rec center. There was no guidance of, hey, you need to work on your catching or your hitting. The thing I did my freshman year is I got a lot stronger. I mean, I came in at 172 as a freshman, and I was 195 at Christmas break from just hitting the weight room and not, playing basketball and football all the time. And I mean, that helped my career much as anything. And then Coach LeClaire's hired in the summer of 1997.
That was after your freshman year. Right?
After my freshman year. Right. And he talks about taking ECU baseball and playing in the College World Series.
Like what?
And I'm not always the smartest guy in the room, but I got a lot of common sense. And I said, well, I just redshirted on a bad team. This guy's talking about going to Omaha and playing in the College World Series.
It's like, all right, dude.
Hey, I better get my crap together pretty quickly or I'm not going to be here. Exactly. That was like the first light bulb that came on. And there were 12 in my freshman class. I was one of 3 to make it to the end. And,
sounds like mine.
Exactly. So, but I tell our teams, and you've heard me say this, I really just try to stay out of the spotlight from Coach LeClaire. So he had a lot of issues to worry about.
Right.
He did not have to worry about me working hard. He did not have to worry about me doing good in school. I was one of the first ones to practice, last one to leave, bust my tail in the weight room. So if I struck out or I missed the ball catching, we're not worried about that dude. Like, he just does everything else the right way.
Right.
And then my talent, the rawness of it was able to develop enough to be an all-conference player my senior year. But the relationships that I built here at East Carolina locker room. Like, I was just talking to one of my former teammates today, who I have probably not spoken to in a couple years, Kyron Madison. He was a AA manager for the Altoona Curve a couple years ago. Now he is the, I guess the director of base running outfield for the minor league coordinator for the Pirates for outfield play and base running. And but today, and we were just talking about the connectivity that we had in that locker room. And even though him and I hadn't spoken in a while, that I would do anything to help that dude out.
Sure.
Because
and you haven't talked to him in years.
I hadn't talked to him in years, and I always bring up Brad Simons, who works here on campus, and he's one of my best friends, and I might see him 3 times a year and don't communicate with him a whole lot. But if I was in California, my car was broke down, and I called Brad Simons, and he was not a great player at East Carolina. We were kind of like the same. He always jokes. He goes, "You took my at bats when you became better," you know. And he hit right-handed, and I hit left-handed, and but that dude would drop everything he was doing, and I would do the same for him. And man, as I get older, and I don't feel like I'm that old, those relationships mean more to me.
Hope you guys enjoying this episode. This episode is brought to you by Brandon Manning. From his days as a Pitt County Bulldog to his years at ECU, Brandon Manning bleeds purple and gold and anything local sports. Brandon was born and raised in Pitt County, and now, as your local Farm Bureau insurance agent in Winterville, Brandon can take care of you and your family with auto, home, life, and health insurance by calling him at 252-531-1812. Thanks to Brandon Manning for his support of the show, obviously. But again, you can reach him at 252-531-1812. Thanks, Brandon.
This week, I went to Chad Tracy and Jeremy Schumacher, 2 of my teammates, bought some farmland in Sherrill, South Carolina. You think Snow Hill's small? Well, Sherrill's pretty small, too.
Yeah, never heard of it.
But it's just in the South Carolina side, really the North Carolina line, kind of south of Richmond County. And Nick Schnabel drove up from Clemson because it was like 3 hours and 45 minutes for him. For me, it was like 3:15, and we spent a day and a half in this farmland hunting. And I'm not a big, but just to be able to hang out with spending time with those guys, man. And that's what college athletics brings when it's done right, in my opinion, is those relationships.
No doubt. And I feel like Coach LeClaire was a big part of instilling that in you guys of like, at least, like you said, you got redshirted, but then after that for 4 years, I mean, 3-4 years, you were a good player, at least in the eyes of your teammates at times. And I feel like being able to develop those relationships, like you said, like you're friends with Eric, you're friends with Nick, you're friends with all these guys, you have beach houses with some of your old teammates. It's like, that's pretty cool looking back on it, knowing that it might not have always been like a really steep climb of like, this is all like sunshine and rainbows. But the fact that you guys are still as tight as you are just proves that, especially Coach LeClaire at the time, like, you guys are the way you are because of him and the culture you guys had back then.
Yeah, Coach LeClaire took a group of guys, especially initially, that were not the most recruited, were not the most talented, and he made us believe that we could beat anybody in the country because of what we did, what we worked at. And I get chill bumps talking about it because y'all worked hard.
Yeah, we have no idea.
Hey, that first year, man, I'm telling you, dude, it was like Navy SEAL training.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
Yeah.
Like, and Coach was trying to see who really wanted to be here in a day where you could. I mean, I tell this story and people laugh. There was real barbed wire in the obstacle course.
Army crawling.
Hey, and if you weren't low enough, you got cut.
Not his problem. Yeah, not his problem.
Hey,
figure it out. Yeah.
And but he made a group of guys that they made it. We lost game 1 to Tennessee in the Super Regional, and I know you were going to bring this up in 2001. And we were down 8-1 against our first rounder.
Oh yeah, and Chris Burke,
who was like the 10th pick overall. And Chad Tracy hits a 3-run homer in the ninth to put us up 1. And then we blow the lead, and we're in vans.
The vans on the way back.
Hey, no charter flights.
I was going to bring this.
We're bringing vans, 2 vans, and I can vividly remember sitting on the van, and it wasn't bullshit. And we're like, we're better than them. We are better than they are. We're fine. We're better than them. And this is the first Super Regional East Carolina's ever been
hosted.
in. Yeah, and that was the belief we had, and we believed it up until I made the last out in game 2.
The damn changeup. It's so funny that you bring that up because that was literally the exact order of it all. Of like, okay, 2001 last year, like big series. Obviously, you get the chance to play in Kinston against Tennessee, who went on to in the College World Series, had won a couple games there. But like you said, loaded talent wise, and comparatively speaking, I think you would admit not nearly as talented as they were as teams in the past that I've played on, as opposed to like, yeah, we don't have Kumar Rocker and Jack Leiter. We don't have Bobby Miller and Reed Detmers, but like we're still tougher than you guys and we could still compete. And I was going to bring up the Van conversation and just like, you guys had just lost a heartbreaking game, but on the way back, it's like, dude, okay, we got tomorrow. Yeah. It's not a 1-game series. We're going to win. Yeah. And it's that belief that you can't recreate that, at least in other places, because and the Clonches of the world, the Barinis of the world, and numerous other guys will say the same thing. Like, we have friends on other teams, and it's not like that everywhere. It's not.
It's not. And that's what makes this place special. And I even throw another little thing that I probably have never told you, but we talk about it as our teammates. But Sam Nairn was our ace that year, and we actually had to kick one of our best players off the team because he was doing some things, and he was a pitcher, a left-handed pitcher, that year, because he wasn't doing some things that was consistent with what our beliefs were.
Right.
And but Sam, we back ended our rotation for the regional because we were the 1 seed. Mm-hmm. So
as we do,
we threw Sam on the Sunday game to beat Winthrop. Well, obviously 2 days short rest because the super regional was Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Probably too much for Sam. And so, but then Friday night gets rained out like crazy, like thunderstorm, rain out in Kinston. And I don't know. I never asked Coach LeClaire this, but, was there any thought to throw Sam on Saturday against, I think his name was White Allen, the first rounder. But if Sam Nairn pitches that game, we win that game. I mean, we literally are down 8-1. Like, I feel like it was the second inning. Like, we brought in a reliever early, and it was like pouring gas on the fire. And then we brought in Ashley Capps, which I hope he hears this because he lives in Greenville, who was like a walk-on lefty, pitched at Rose, like basically the bottom of the barrel. And he's like stuffing Tennessee.
Oh,
like
awesome.
It gave us like some breathing room to let our offense catch. Another funny story is Chad Tracy had played with this guy in the Cape, and he was like, man, this guy sucks, man. He's soft, dude. And Chad's back when nobody threw 93, 95. Sure. But it's like 93, 95, and he's throwing heaters into me, cross-counting me, change-ups away, moving my feet.
Like good stuff.
Like good stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm like so uncomfortable, and Chad is like on every pitch. That's when I knew, I knew he was better than me, but this dude's
That's
like
impressive.
really good.
Yeah.
And I remember coming back to dugout, and Chad's like, I was like, Chad,
dude, you're out of your mind, brother.
Hey, this dude is freaking making me really uncomfortable. Yeah, I know you're seeing it really well, but that was a funny story for sure.
That's so funny. Well, I mean, like you said, he was a big leaguer for a reason.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
But obviously, Tennessee happens. It's painful, brutal. College career is over, and we've heard the story before of like you're focused only on baseball, and you and I specifically have had this conversation of like worry about right now. Don't worry about what's happening after baseball. Worry about right now, because enjoy it, because it's the best time of your life. The season ends, and you're not sure what to do. Yep. And it's a very gray area that a lot of players have been in. And you obviously you land on your feet, obviously, as you would, just because of the people that you were surrounded by and the relationships you created.
Let me pause that, because I want people to hear this part of the story. That's why, I always tell you guys to be where your feet are. That's one of the best decisions. And nobody really gave me advice. I was just so locked in to us playing well and winning, and there wasn't social media. So there wasn't people. I can remember Jeremy Schumacher, because I hit 15 home runs that year, calling me and going like, hey, man, are you going to get an opportunity to play pro ball? And I was like, dude, I ain't even thought about
cares?
it. Well, but I hadn't. And of course, that was my dream, but I was so dialed in. And when I made the last out in the super regional, it was like my world came crashing down. Mm-hmm. It was like you're going 100 miles an hour, and all you're thinking about is we're going to the College World Series. I don't have any idea what is after that. Don't care. We're putting all our eggs in this basket. But it allowed me to be the best version of myself in that moment. And then when it was over, dude, I was in a bad place, dude. I mean, I went out partying for 10 days straight probably, and I would wake up and go work out and stuff. And I mean, independent ball was like a placeholder, man. It was really just because I didn't know what I would do in my life without sports. Yeah. And I, was doing
right hand up, me too. Yeah,
and I was in the same spot. Doing, good academically. I was in grad school, and I finished up my master's and stuff. But it was so not what ECU baseball was. And you talk about the bottom of the barrel and scrounging money and just, I guess it was cool to tell people you're still playing somewhat of professional baseball, but man, it was miserable. When you look back on it, it was like you're grinding for something that's not really even a reality. And once I broke my foot and I got released, I was like, man, I got to do something for my life because this isn't. I'm not going to play Major League Baseball.
Yeah, you kind of saw the light at the end of the tunnel with that, which was, I guess, kind of the start of your coaching. Essentially, I mean, you end up obviously at Kinston High School, which is the beginning of it all, which is crazy to think about, of the trajectory of how you ended up where you are today. Kinston to Wilmington and the list goes on and on. But like starting out at Kinston, did you like initially, was your thought like, geez, like this is where I'm starting, or it's like, let's go, great opportunity, let's make the most of it? And obviously your perspective now as opposed to back then is probably a lot different, but starting out at Kinston, it's like, what is going through your head at that point?
So I finished up my master's December 2002 and went to the Glaxo Welcome Holiday Basketball Tournament, which was at Reynolds Coliseum where NC State played at the time. Wells Gulledge was the head basketball coach at Kinston High School. One of my good friends, I went to go watch them play. And Craig Hill, who was the principal at the time, he was Kinston High School's basketball coach when I played basketball. I'm walking down the baseline, and Craig Hill sees me, and he goes, "Hey, Cliff, what's up, man? What are you doing?" I said, "Well, I just finished up my master's, and I want to get into college coaching. And, it's a bad time of the year. It's in December, and not many opportunities." So he goes, "Well, how about you be our assistant baseball coach this year? I'll create a tutoring position for you, pay you like a teacher. And then Ronnie Battle, our head baseball coach, is going to retire for this season. Next year, you'll be our head baseball coach." It's only like 30-second conversation. Yes. Everybody had told me if you ever got into high school, you'd never get back into college. So I looked at him and I said, "Craig, can I just go home and like think about it?" And there really wasn't a thought process because I'm like trying to do lessons, which there's no like indoor facilities. I'm like driving to Snow Hill, working with a couple kids, and I'm scrounging for pennies basically. And I'm like, salary, coach baseball, sounds good to me. I'm in. I'm in. I don't know what everybody else is talking about.
Right. This episode's also brought to you by Jay Bastardo with Via Verde, Harvey's Breakfast Place, and of course his new restaurant, Bella Green. Jay is a great human, dude. He's got an awesome story. Obviously has started all these restaurants here in Greenville with his new Dominican sports bar, Bella Green, obviously Harvey's Breakfast Place, and 2 Via Verde restaurants. But Jay, I really appreciate you supporting the show. Obviously supported ECU Athletics, specifically ECU Baseball, but really appreciate you supporting the show and everything that's about. But thanks, Jay.
Then I was like all in, and Ronnie Battle, who has passed away, like I look back and I was 23, 24 years old at the time, and this young coach full of piss and vinegar thinks he knows everything,
Go figure.
And you've got this 30-year-old veteran of coaching. And Kinston had not had a lot of success in baseball. It was a basketball school. And how kind he was to me. And he just let me go, man. I don't know if he could see like some goodness in me, but to start with, I was working with the pitchers and the catchers and the hitters. And you can imagine when you're at a high school practice, like I'm throwing BP, trying to run down for a bullpen and all that stuff. And one day he says, "Hey, I was calling the pitches already." He goes, "You run the offense." The guy's like been in high school coach for 30 years. "Hey, you run you're better at it than I am.
Do what?
You go run the offense." So literally I'm 23, 24 years old, and it's high school, but I'm running the offense. I'm calling the pitches. Like I'm running the team.
It's a good opportunity. Yeah,
it was a great opportunity. And, we won the conference for the first time in school history, I think, or 30 years. And we beat CB Aycock, who had Dustin Sasser, who pitched here at East Carolina, and also Rob Wooten, who pitched at North Carolina. We had 3 hits. They had 10. We did have a big leaguer on the team, and Chris Hatcher, who actually got a cup of coffee as a catcher, and then as a pitcher, he pitched in a big league.
That's a hell of a story.
Played at UNCW. Yeah. And we had some good players. But my point of the story, we executed 1 hit and run. We won 2-1, and we won the conference.
Do what you got to do to win. That's fine.
But CB Aycock did beat us in the 3rd round of the playoffs, but it was the farthest Kinston High School had been. And then I was coaching Legion ball, and Coach Fulgham, my high school coach, called me and goes, "UNCW's got a volunteer assistant job open. Would you be?" I'm like, "Yeah, man. Let's go." Remember Coach Scaff and Randy Hood calling my mom's house and me basically like doing an interview, and I said, "I'm in." And Coach Scaff's like, "Well, doesn't pay any money. I'm in.
Yeah,
let's go."
Let's do it.
Made $8,000 for the entire year. $8,000 and running up a credit card. And one of my buddies, Jeff Smith, let me live with him for free. Then he got married, and I know, it's illegal now, but I was going to sleep in the locker room and buy a blow-up match because I had no money.
Yeah.
And Scott Jackson, who's now the associate
Carolina
head coach at UNC, at least I think that's what his title was, the head coach at Liberty, was the pitching coach at the time. He goes, Cliff, you're not staying in the locker room.
God bless him.
And I said, oh, yes, I am. He goes, no, you're moving in with Sarah and I. And I said, I don't even know Sarah that well. They're married. I'm like, dude, I can't just go crash it. It's not like you're living by yourself.
Right.
And he says, pack your shit up. You're moving in. And Sarah and him treated me like I was like the older son. She's cooking dinner for Scott and I.
Dinner's ready.
Dinner's ready. And Scott and I would go up and like I say the playroom, but it was like a man cave.
Sure.
We'd watch like old school, go get ice cream. And man, Scott and I talk about this all the time, like the purity of, I was working on the field. I was working with the hitters. I was working with the catchers. I didn't have to go on the road recruiting or anything. And man, it was one of the most fun years of my life because it was just like baseball, and I was broke as crap.
Yeah.
And people always think about money's going to make you happy. I was super happy and had no money.
Literally. Living on somebody else's couch.
Yeah.
That's the best part of your life.
Yeah. So that's how all the UNCW stuff happened.
It's so funny because it's one of those things where, like, and for people that haven't heard the story, even players, like, that's why when we go to Liberty, that's why it's like, because I remember Ethan last year coming up to me during BP, and he's like, why is he talking to their coach so much? I'm like, has he told you the story? And he's like, no. And I'm like, go ask him about the story. Now you know why. It's one of those things where it's like you're indebted to those guys that you have helped along or they've helped you along for your life. And it's one of those things where, like for example, like you go to Vandy to be the Dobo, Tim Corbin. You go to Notre Dame with Paul Maneri and Terry Rooney. Then you go to them to LSU. UCF with Terry Rooney. And that's where you meet Coach Palumbo. Ole Miss and you think about Ole Miss where it's like, obviously Coach Bianco and Laugh, but like their kids are coming to our games when we're playing at Memphis. And you haven't coached there in what, 7-8 years?
No, 11.
At the time, yeah.
At the time,
in 2022 when they got the chance to come, and like Laugh's son's our bat boy, and it's just like those are the relationships that you're talking about. Like we didn't even play together, you coached together, but along the road of the guys that impacted you and probably the people that likewise you impacted them, it's like those relationships are irreplaceable because they're lifelong friendships that you get to cherish with, obviously throughout your entire. I mean, what year did you go to Vandy?
Right after the UNCW. So I was at UNCW 03, 04, so 04, 05. David Price's freshman year.
Yeah, it's not bad. Not a bad group to be around. But you obviously end up at Vandy there for a year.
Yep. And story about that, because I want people to hear, like, people do notice what you're doing. So I was the volunteer assistant at UNCW. East Coast Professional Showcase was on UNCW's campus at the time. So top 150 players east of the Mississippi. So you got every major college coach recruiting that event. And I'm working on the field. I'm doing laundry. I mean, I look like I've been in the tobacco field.
Yeah.
And then I would go stand next to Eric Backage and open up a book and try to take notes. And I had no idea. But you've watched back. You know what good players are. They're all good. Tim Corbin just asked Eric, like, hey, who's the guy that's running around here like a maniac and doing the field stuff? And then he stands next to you.
In your pocket.
And then Eric's like, well, that's CG. That's my boy. We played together at East Carolina. He goes, do you think he'd be interested in our director of baseball operations job? And back then, nobody had ops guy. I didn't even know what that meant.
Yeah.
Like, what do you do? Like, what do you...
Sure.
And had dinner at Outback with Tim Corbin and Eric, and he offered me a job. So I went from making $8,000 to $12,500 with no benefits. And it was a part-time job where the HR lady would be like, hey, you filled out your time card and said you wasn't here yesterday because you could only be 20 hours.
Yeah.
And I saw you, and I was like, I don't know who you saw.
Yeah.
Hey, look, it wasn't me.
Wasn't me, whatever it was.
But, man, I tell people all the time that, you talk about 1 year of your life that you've learned the most. That was the year for me because I was Tim Corbin's right-hand man. And I don't mean that I was learning so much, but I just was with him all the time.
Yeah.
Whether it was practice organization, boosters, compliance, raising money. When he was losing his mind about something, Maggie, his wife's calling me going, don't let Corbs get fired today. Got it.
Yes, ma'am. Sounds good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, he would be like, hey, you fly, I buy. Like, go get coffee or whatever. Like, cool. done. Let's go.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was a great experience, and obviously being with Eric too.
Yeah.
Eric let me live with him for free, so another moment of somebody helping me out.
Exactly, and it's funny because it's the same thing of people like, and I was the ignorant freshman when we played at Vandy, and I'm like, why, like Bridgie, why are they like talking so much? Like, I get that they coaching the SEC against each other before. Maybe that was where the relationship for some. He's like, have you heard the story? I'm like, no. He's like, well, ask him the story and tell him. It's the same kind of thing, but obviously you make great relationships again there, and then you end up going to Notre Dame and playing some baseball in the cold, which you've talked about was you think Eastern North Carolina is cold. Go play in Indiana for a little bit and see how it is. But I mean, it was.
And just talking about the relationships and connections. So I'm the head coach for the Wilmington Sharks that summer in the Coastal Plain. Nick Schnabel is my assistant, and we're coaching this team. Man, we had some good players on that team, and so Kevin McMullen calls me and goes, "Hey, you want to be the hitting and catching coach in a top 25 program?" And I go, "Yeah." He goes, "Notre Dame," and I'm like, "Notre Dame? They're good in baseball."
That was a football school.
Yeah, I've watched them on NBC in football, and he goes, "No, they're a top 25 program." He's like, "The job's yours, just don't F up the interview." That was Coach Mack's line to me.
Thanks, Mac. Appreciate you.
It was like, "Thanks, Coach Mack." But that's how I got the Notre Dame job. And yeah, it was super cold. And Coach Maneri said it was the mildest winter in his 13 years of being a head coach there. I'm like, it's a blizzard like every day.
This is mild to you? Is that right? Is that right? Yeah, maybe this isn't for me.
Yeah.
But you obviously, me, Coach Maneri, and of course Coach Rooney too, and you guys create a great relationship because they end up taking you down to Baton Rouge with LSU when Coach Maneri took that job, and get to go to Omaha too during the few years you were there. What was at least in Rosenbluth, what was that like?
Well, so just to backtrack a little bit, so we get the job in the summer of 2006 and go out to fall practice, and I'm like, we went to LSU's a number 1 seed in '99, and I mean it's like dudes on the field,
the box,
but there's like dudes, Kurt Ainsworth, who's like 10th pick overall. Brad Cressy's hit 1,000 home runs. I mean, you've got guys everywhere. Kurt Ainsworth struck out Backage 3 times on 9 pitches, so I got to
that's not bad.
Introduce Ainsworth to Backage one day in an elevator in the coaches convention. And I was like, "Hey, Kurt, I want you to meet my buddy."
This is your dad?
Yeah. But and we roll out. I'm like, what happened to the player? Like our players at Notre Dame are better than these.
This is supposed to be the SEC. This is the
we
South.
had Jeff Samardzija in our rotation. Jeff Manship, who had a cup of coffee in the big leagues. Like we had good players at Notre Dame, and so you get there and it's not good. And we were not good in '07, and did not make the SEC tournament. And then we signed the number 1 ranked recruiting class in the country. And Terry was the recruiting coordinator. And we actually started out 6-12-1 in the SEC in '08. And I mean, of course, people are like, God, bad hires, like what's going on? And then we reeled off, and I'm getting to 23 straight wins.
It's like, it's like 22.
Well, the longest win streak in SEC history, still to this day, 75 years at the time. And we went from last to first and to a national seed. And so we hosted a regional, last regional ever at the old Alex Box Stadium. And then the super regional, we're playing UC Irvine, and we had won 23 games in a row, and we lose game 1. And like nothing went right. And you're about to lose the first super regional in Alex Box history, by the way.
Don't be that guy.
This is it.
Yeah.
We're down 3 runs in the top of the 9th inning with an All-American closer for UC Irvine that's got 18 saves, who has not blown a save all year. And he walks the leadoff guy. And, dude, I'm getting you. They were banging on the roof of Alex Box. It was so loud. Man. And you can Google it and go to Game 2 Super Regional 2008, and the quality of the video is not great, but you can feel like I still do it every once in a while. And we put up 5 runs. And
on an All-American closer.
Yep, and we win. They had to bring in their Game 3 starter in that inning to try to just get out of the inning.
Yeah.
And then in Game 3, we murdered them, and we hit back-to-back home runs in the first inning.
It's a hot start. That's not bad. Hey, that's if you're gonna start with a bang, that's the way to do it, especially at home. But this episode is also brought to you by Tiebreakers. Tiebreakers is open every day at 11 a.m. and is the best place to watch your favorite sports while enjoying the best wings in town, as well as sandwiches, appetizers, cold beer, and more. Follow Tiebreakers on Facebook and Instagram for daily updates. Tiebreakers is in Greenville at Bells Fork on Greenville Boulevard and in downtown Winterville on Railroad Street. Obviously, dude, LSU, I mean, the old box nonetheless, the new one, but like I can only imagine the environment, especially being down a game with win or go home at that point. It's like that's the crowd you want behind you if you're gonna be in that situation. Yeah. But
and the new box, the crowd, I mean, there's more people. The old box, man, the people are just on top of you, dude.
Yeah.
You know, kind of like our place is. That's why I tell people all the time, we don't have the most fans, but when it's loud, dude, man, and they're on top of you, there's not a louder place in college baseball. I mean, Henry and AK played in Ole Miss regionals and super regionals, and they'll tell you. I mean, they're just on top of you.
And we used to joke with Colby, we're like, all right, dude, because like he had a great freshman year, the year that you guys went to Omaha, and we would always joke with him and I was going to bring this up later, but Cam, and there's a small group of us that were like obsessed with the season. And for the people that don't know about the season, Ole Miss does this thing for, I'm pretty sure, like every sport.
Yeah.
Where they have a documentary crew follow them around and they basically break down certain series of the year, but especially when they get into postseason play, it's like 24/7. They're always around. And we'd always like joke around with AK because we're like, you look like you're 12 years old, and Colby like hitting bombs against Washington and stuff. But like that environment, we would always ask Colby, like, seriously, how cool is it playing in Swayze? And he's like, it's not, I mean, it might be as cool as here, but like when this place is rocking, and we've pretty much every guest I've talked to has been like, dude, Texas.
Yeah.
It will give you chills thinking about it. But back to LSU. You end up leaving LSU with Coach Rooney, go to UCF.
God, we were bad. Yeah. Yeah.
But an enlarged role there. And that's where you meet Coach Palumbo, obviously, which is where that relationship was created. What was the couple years you were there like, at least? Obviously, meeting Coach Palumbo, developing that relationship. Obviously, he's your right-hand man on this staff. But what was that like before going back to the SEC? I mean, I feel like that was such a weird time of like, because not a lot of people have seen the LSU, know that story, know Vandy, know Notre Dame, but like I feel like that UCF couple of years were like a buffer in time that a lot of people don't really know about or hear about often.
Yeah, and so just to be fully transparent, a lot of people like in the coaching world would say like, why would you leave LSU and go to UCF? And Terry was recruiting me like a number one draft pick, and Coach Maneri wasn't. And him and I just had our differences at times, and that's just being fully transparent. And some of it was my ego for sure, and you wanted to be wanted, for sure. And but I finally just said uncle at one point because Terry was like, we're in Omaha, and he's like in my room all the time, and I hope he listens to this. But that's one of Terry's best qualities. Like he's a relentless recruiter. So I did it. And, I was going to be able to run the offense where I just coached third base, and I didn't get to put the signs on. And, I felt like, for my head coaching career, I needed to be able to do that. But it was really the best thing that probably happened in my career. I've had a lot of blessings, but I probably needed to go somewhere that they really, really sucked, and it wasn't a big-name school because we got dropped off in the state of Florida, which I had been to when I was like 5 for Disney World. And now I'm the recruiting coordinator, and I have to go create all these relationships with high school coaches and travel ball coaches and stuff. And nobody wants to come to UCF. We're like 7th or 8th
on the list
in Florida at the time because they had fired their coach and weren't good. We had morning practices the first fall. So I'm getting to the office as Jeff is like 5:30 every morning. Early works at like 7. You're stretching at 8. And the best and the worst thing about the state of Florida, there's always a baseball game. So then I'm getting in my car and I'm driving to Tampa or Jacksonville or Miami, and I'm getting back every night between 8 and 10 o'clock at night and just hitting repeat.
And that alarm's going off at the same time.
And you talk about Groundhog Day.
Oh, dude,
it was, and you're looking at it, the product on the field too, and you're like, man, I got to keep going because this is bad. And in that first season, I didn't even feel like a coach. I mean, I missed like 30 games because I was on the road recruiting junior college players and stuff. And me as a coach now, but I still like to be in the cages with the guys and work with them and that connection and to challenge them and stuff. And I wasn't getting that. And I was like, man, I feel like I'm a scout, dude. This isn't what I want to do. And the next year was a little bit better. We led the conference in hitting, and but still didn't get to a regional. And then year 3, we went to a regional. And Jeff and I call it the Navy SEAL training of college coaches. Those 3 years. So if you can get through that, you can get through anything. And but it made me better for sure. And, I think Jeff would say the same thing. But, Jeff and I were colleagues, but we weren't like that close,
Tight, yeah.
that tight, because Terry did lean on me more than because he didn't know Jeff.
You guys have been together for a couple of years at that point, right? Yeah.
And I had told Terry when the Ole Miss stuff came up, I wasn't looking to leave because we have gotten good,
yeah.
and you can throw a baseball in Orlando and find a player,
right?
Because it's Florida, and Coach Bianco reached out, and I was like, yeah, I'll come on a visit, and I had told Terry, to go back to the visit, I just got to Oxford. I was like, it reminds me of Eastern North Carolina.
You get off a highway and it's like college town, yeah.
It's a college town, and you know me, I love college towns. Man, I'm from Eastern North Carolina, and the fans and all that stuff. And I was like, man, the last time I was here, there was 11,000 here. Eli Manning threw out the first pitch. This feels like home.
Yeah.
And so I take the job, but I hadn't encouraged Terry to either promote Jeff as the recruiting coordinator or at minimum let him be the hitting coach, because I was like, Jeff can do this. And Terry didn't want to do that, and that's his call. He's the boss. And so then Jeff went to VCU. Mm-hmm. So for 3 years, Jeff was at VCU, and I'm at Ole Miss. And, the Ole Miss, like Laugh and I became, best friends. I'm the godfather of his kids. I was going to say this earlier, but he sent me a picture. Henry, one of his twins, had a ECU baseball T-shirt on, and Ole Miss's cages the other day. And I think Coach Bianco,
I'm sure he loved that.
Coach Bianco walked up to Laughs like, does he have any Ole Miss gear?
That's funny. It's funny you say that, because I will, like, whenever you post pictures with him too, but like I'll look at his wife's Instagram and it's all Pirate stuff. Yeah. It's crazy. I'm like, you would think that Laughs like the pitching coach here for like 15 years. Yeah. By the way his kids dress. It's so funny that you say that.
Well, I will say this, something with the Jolly Roger logo.
Big fan.
No, kids in general, man.
Yeah,
they, like from a young age, dude, it's like Mickey, or Minnie Mouse. It's crazy. It's like something that just gravitates kids to it, and they love it, man. And Will was our bat boy. Yeah. Hey, the Memphis, the no hitter.
That game was crazy.
Mayhew, and I can't remember the other kid's name, but who's ever gets to witness that as a 10-year-old?
Yeah, and he's in
there every pitch.
He's going to look back on that and be like, that was pretty cool. I don't know, because I think they must have been on the road that weekend, and that's why they got the chance to come watch. And I'm like, and we're like joking with the Nugget. It's like, all right, you like the Pirates more, don't you? Like, yeah, go Rebs, but like, come on. And he's obviously fired up because he's getting to wear the Pirate helmet and all that good stuff.